let me kick off really quick by just in case anybody else is listening to us, uh, by welcoming anybody and everybody to the Body Mind Index. I'm your host, Jerry Pujals, with my near and dear, I like to call you a close friend because I really feel it from the heart, Dustin Diede. And I've known you for a long time, and reason why I'm excited we're here today is out of sheer curiosity and admiring you so much, man. I've known you, God, man, it's been a long time. I from a moment wherein you, Jesus, man, could it be close to 20 years since I've known you?
I think we're probably closer to 30. I think we met
Wow.
back in I would say 96, 97 time frame. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're pushing up there. So been a long time.
Wow, wow,
Time
Dustin,
flies.
you just blew my mind entirely. So you're right. So but part partly why I wanted you on the Body Mind Index was because my journey, a little bit of my journey, and
Hmm.
working through improving my health and working on things that are just not physical but also mental well-being. All these things tie in together, and I think they're just part of one thing, which is our body.
Right.
Running into you not too long ago out there on Kanapali, I've always been fascinated with the things that you do in the realm of cycling, and then that just kind of led down the path of how much cycling you actually do. I knew you won awards, and I knew you were at a real high level when it came down to mountain biking, and I knew you were super involved with road cycling as well. So you're not either on one camp or the other. I love what you wrote to me this morning, which is if there's a race, it doesn't matter where it's at. I'm there, so to speak. So you're not a fair weather cyclist. Uh,
No.
yeah, and that and
No.
that also brings up a lot more curiosity for me because a lot of us tend to get stuck on just one lane. I'm starting to do things that I haven't done before. I'm starting to run
Hmm.
further distance, and even in walking and hiking, I'm starting to hike further distances
Hmm.
within a 12-hour period of time. I'm working towards a 24-hour hike, uh,
Yeah.
just to test out. People think walking is easy. Oh,
No.
try hiking for 12 hours. And when I did the Mount Whitney trek not long ago, I hiked 18 hours nonstop, and
Yeah.
it takes endurance. And then that also made me think of you even more because I think what you do requires so much endurance. So I'm hoping you can take me back to your beginnings, man, and what even got you into cycling, because from early on I didn't know that was there. I just know that you're a military guy who did really well there. I know you have a very successful home inspection business that in our real estate world we utilize, and are so happy to do business with somebody like you who has so much integrity and the ability to solve complex problems. But I also now see that you've taken that you can that all that you apply to your business, you've probably applied to your physical and mental well-being. That's where I'll leave it.
All right. So if I got to take you back, I got to take you back a long ways, and that's going to bring us all the way back to right before my son was born. So my second child. Um, After having my first child, and 2 years of different lifestyle change in my lifestyle. At the point in time, I was young, I was eager, I was military, I was overweight, I love to eat, and it may be hard to imagine for those of you who do know me, or people who see me now. At that point in time, I was about 230 plus pounds, and I'm only 5'6". So and it wasn't 230 plus pounds of muscle, so didn't really do anything whatsoever. And I was on the verge of some serious trouble with the military just due to my weight. So I took a deployment to the United Arab Emirates, and I was basically at basic camp. We lived in tents at that point in time. I was there for about 4.5 months, And I made a commitment because obviously we worked every day except for we had one day off, and I didn't really have anything to do when I wasn't working. We worked 12 hours. So when I was off, I decided I would just start out walking. I walked around a track. We had a track there. We had some treadmills and stuff like that. The treadmills were always sandy, so you pretty much stayed outside and walked around the track as much as you could. I worked the day shifts so I could walk at night. And I came home after that trip. I was about 180 pounds. I lost about 40 pounds on that trip, and started a life change at that point. I took up cycling. I had already been kind of into mountain biking. I had some friends that really enjoyed mountain biking. I would go with them. I wasn't very good. I also smoked about a pack and a half a day. So I was an avid smoker, classically overweight, ate too much, drank too much, kind of lifestyle. So that changed all right around 2000 is when all of that went into place. So in 2000, I got a taste for road cycling, and I went out and I made my first big bicycle purchase. I believe it was $1,700. Bought it here in Napa at Ray's Cycle, back when that was opened up here, and started that road cycling adventure. And I never looked back. I've been racing ever since then. I started out, classically, they put everybody in categories, and I was a category 5, which is your basic beginning. And as a road cyclist, I made it up to category 2, whereas cat 1 is your pro level, elite athletes. And then cat 2, we still have to race in the pro category. We just don't get any money. We don't get paid. We don't get sponsorships. So we still have to race like a pro, train like a pro. We just don't get the sponsorships that go along with that. So, and I did that for several years, as far as road cycling. And then this new thing came out where people started putting kind of mountain bike tires on road bikes. And we came up with this new, and I know it sounds crazy, but it's gravel. It's, everybody's like, well, it's been around for a long time, but it really hasn't. It's a relatively new sport. And now we do gravel races that range anywhere between 70 to 100 miles. And they're just what you would think, gravel roads, country roads that there are still thousands and thousands of miles of here in California and everywhere else. And then a couple years ago, I started racing cyclocross, which, for those who don't know, cyclocross is kind of like road biking, only it's done on multiple terrains. So you have a little bit of road, you have a little bit of dirt trails, you have stairs, you have obstacles. Sometimes you're picking up the bike and running. You got to ride through sand, run through water, that type of thing. So it's a full body workout. It's a closed circuit. Usually it's about a 1 mile course, and you do laps for time. So they're usually 1 hour races, high intensity. So, and just finished up my cyclocross season this year. Had a phenomenal season for me. Probably the best season I've had in cycling since I was in my 30s. And I do attribute a lot of that to getting a coach this year, getting back in the gym. As cyclists, we tend to think that we just need to be on the bike, but as old cyclists and as 50-year-olds, we know that we need to be in the gym, and we need to be hitting iron, and we need to be putting up some weight so that we don't lose that muscle strength, and we don't lose that bone density, and we don't lose, that functional strength that we need to survive, to get through those harsh conditions of racing. So, and then had a phenomenal race season this cyclocross season, and I just wrapped it up, and I just took about a week of recovery. So not a whole lot of riding, just some Thanksgiving eating, and then that led into some Christmas, and now just starting to get back into my base building phase right now. I do train with a periodic phase and a type of mentality. So that's kind of where I'm at, A to Z. I do have a wife and kids, and I've even got a little one at home. So, and a full-time job and a full-time business. And yeah, we're busy, and you still plug in the time for training, you still plug in the time for gym, and it may mean that you stay up a little bit later, or you go to bed a little earlier and wake up earlier, but you got to get it done. So.
Well, man, that was a lot packed in there, and I'm just gonna go, and thank you. I'm just gonna go back to where I met you, where I maybe I remember you being slightly, thicker? I never remember you as being fat, so I think you probably started on your journey
I
downward.
remember you being thicker too.
Oh man,
That's a good term for us.
thank you for being so kind. I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
We were.
Oh,
It's fine. I was overweight.
oh no, but I mean,
Yeah.
where you're at now, where you have been for years now, it's just fascinating because I saw you go through a transformation where I thought, holy man, this guy is just not is he just thinner, but is vibrant, muscular, and athletic. I mean, you just all of a sudden, to me, you seemed extremely athletic. And I knew you were into cycling, but I just figured you were doing the whole thing, and I didn't know what the whole thing was. And like many people, I also thought that this just probably came natural to you and that you just outgrew that other phase and this was your new phase and it didn't come with a lot of work. So can you help me understand maybe what started first for you? Was it movement or was it what kicked it off? Was it movement or was it nutrition?
It's always been movement. And even, I mean, there is some nutritional factor to it, but it has always been movement. One of the things as a cyclist, I mean, when you really get into it, you can spend upwards of 12 to 14 hours a week, doing the training. And really, you don't have to worry too much about nutrition as far as weight loss is concerned. I mean, it's pretty easy to lose weight. The only reason I track nutrition is to make sure that I keep my macros where they need to be, making sure that I keep the protein, and now more than anything, keeping the protein where the protein needs to be, because that's the scariest thing as an older athlete is it's easy to lose weight. I mean, it's super easy. I put on probably 5 to 7 pounds during Thanksgiving. And then as soon as I started base one, within a week of base one, I dropped 3 or 4 pounds immediately, and then the second week, I'm getting ready to roll into the second week. I'll probably lose another 2 pounds there. And it's harder to keep it on than it is to take it off, honestly.
Well, that
So,
debunks that really debunks everything that I think and been doing. So I love really loving this conversation. I'm loving the conversation because it makes me curious about your sport, about that
mhm.
particular sport. And I know that the season just ended, but the fact that there probably is a community of people that come together and you could start leveling up, that seems
Yeah.
exciting to me. But for me, it's always been the opposite. It's been the mouth. My mouth can't outrun what I put in it. It doesn't seem to matter how much work I do at the gym to
Hmm.
where I can't outrun it. But clearly, I'm not burning the amount of calories that you must be going through. I mean, you probably are burning so many calories that it doesn't matter how much you put in. You're just going to burn more than you take in, right?
Pretty close. I mean, for me, I have to watch alcohol consumption, because I feel like that's a calorie that doesn't burn the same. I do kind of watch the sugars; they don't burn the same.
Yeah.
But what I have found, and what's been really interesting to me this year, what's been kind of enlightening to me this year is, and I go back to that thing I've kind of hinted at it a couple of times with age, and I can't stress how important it is as an older athlete. And I do consider myself an athlete, but as an older athlete, you absolutely have to have the right amount of protein in your diet. So if you did nothing more than counted your protein, and I'm literally quoting my brother here. My brother's a 50-year-old bodybuilder. He's the most interesting guy. He was a cyclist as well, and now he's a bodybuilder and kind of transformed his workouts and everything. But quoting him directly, if you just counted your protein alone and you made sure that you took in a gram of protein for every pound of weight that you currently have. So if you're 160 pounds, if you took in a gram of protein, you don't really have a whole lot of room left in your belly to eat a whole lot of other stuff. And to focus on 160, it's hard to get 160 grams of protein. I mean, protein shakes, that protein bars, by the time you consume all of that, there isn't a whole lot left for, the other stuff. So you count those proteins, you get the 150, you count you get those veggies, you're eating, you're eating the salads. You're only doing that so that your gut feels good from eating all of the protein, right? So you're getting that counterbalance from that protein, from all of that, and working on that gut bacteria and make sure that you got gut health. By the time you're said and done and you've consumed that much protein, you've already eaten probably 2,500 calories, but they're the most dense, heavy calories that just fill you up and make you feel, like, I mean, generally the only time I dip into the candy jar or the ice cream bucket is after like yesterday I did a 2 hour a spin session for 2 hours, and that I have a spin studio in back of my house, and just sit on the bike for 2 hours in front of a video screen, and I got done and I burned probably 1,700 calories because it was on a virtual race scene. And yeah, then I'm like, okay, I need some popcorn to fill in the hole, or I need some candy to fill in the hole. But if it's a normal day, you eat enough protein, you don't have a whole lot of room for anything else. You're pretty full, I feel like.
I'm starting to focus more on that. I just recently hired a nutritional coach slash running coach
Mm-hmm.
from a company called MedPro. And
Yeah, familiar with them.
yeah, and I struggle with a couple of things, and I struggle with food addiction. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a whole other topic. I don't know if you've ever felt like you had a propensity or a weakness towards over consuming foods or using foods as a drug source, because for me, not a big drinker and definitely not a recreational drug guy or anything, whatever allows me to calm down and relax at the end of a hard day. It's always been food centric.
Right.
So that's been my sort of drug of choice. And I find myself in a little bit of an interesting place, because now my coach is doing a great job making sure that I'm focusing on my macros. I started a year ago by really focusing on my micronutrients and
Mm-hmm.
shedding fat through veganism. So, I'm not taking in animal products and things like that, which are richer in protein. So I found that it was impossible for me to hit the macros that I needed without some type of supplementation, because I was really starting to evangelize and really almost be stuck on whole food plant-based, because I like the sound of not eating anything processed anymore. And I haven't done it for over a year. I haven't eaten anything processed. But if you look at a vegan protein powder, that is a form of processed food.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me to be the only way I can get enough macros to even come close to what you're talking about, which I know I'm not there. So I definitely want to continue the conversation, even if it's offline with you. I'm so happy to be talking to you, man. You have a super wealth of knowledge that can help me maybe even get a little bit unstuck, because I'm stuck and I'm 57 years old, so I'm navigating through this. How do I feel really good going into these really long and challenging things I want to do, because I'm freaking fascinated by them. Just like it sounds like you are about your whatever your stage is right now at your life.
Yeah.
It's the most exciting, and what it leads me to is like it leads me of a mindset of the best is yet to come type of thing. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of curious on that non-process. I mean, so as a cyclist, we have to eat. I mean, and even you, right, when you start going on this 18-hour hike or this 24-hour hike, um, you know, I'd be super curious to see how you even plan to to set up your nutrition path for it, because
Yeah.
it's such a daunting task. I mean, and I know people don't get it, but you're going to burn upwards, gosh, you're going to be burning pretty close to 600 to 700 calories an hour. And as you start to progress into the night and you start to get later and later, and you start to heart rate will, you're going to start to see, that elevated heart rate, even though you may not be picking up your pace, you may even be slowing your pace down, but you're going to have that elevation and your body's going to be burning through everything. What do you plan on eating if you can't eat anything processed? If you're,
Yeah,
I
no,
spend a I
it
spend a ton of time eating processed food.
to yeah, you're calling a spade, and I love it, because and I think you just worked you're playing whack-a-mole, and I think you hit the mole right on the head. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And it could have come at a real big price. You know, that was
Yeah.
that's a summit attempt that I tried on Mount Whitney about 6 months ago when it was still
I
packed with
remember that.
snow, and
Hmm.
it utterly failed because number one, it wasn't whole food plant based because I still had to wrap almond butter on tortilla shells. So let's consider
Hmm.
tortilla shell a processed food.
Certainly.
And and then I mashed bananas into them, and I took I think it was 15 uh banana almond butter tortilla wraps up
Hmm.
the mountain, and that was I think it was a 6,000 over 6,000 foot climb. I only made it 5,000 feet up. I came 1,000 from the top, and it was because I ran out of water. But I think there were other things that would have gone wrong anyways, because
Hmm.
you're right. I didn't I didn't have enough electrolytes to even get me through. The fact that I ran out of water 2 hours before I had to turn around was one act,
Hmm.
but I think I was so low on sodium. I think I was definitely missing so many things in the way of the right nutrients to give me the fuel to get up the last 1,000 feet, and I was already breaking down. So it took the reason that hike took 18 hours is because my speed, even on the way down, uh, Dustin, if I said I was walking, um, Jesus, maybe a 30-minute mile, maybe a 35-minute mile. I mean, I couldn't hardly move on the way down. Uh,
Hmm.
I wasn't far from a helivac. I wasn't far. It was bad. It was really bad. So there wasn't any success wrapped up around that. But the fact that I started at 1 o'clock in the morning and I moved my body for 18 hours, and that's the one thing
Yeah.
I'm proud of the failure because it taught me so much. And as long as I don't think I came close to death, but I think I hovered in the cloud of being in real big trouble.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of studying this year. So there's been a big shift in carbohydrate intake for endurance athletes. And in the past, and if you do any reading, you look at anything like Joe Friel or you look at anything like Andy Kogan, and these guys are iconic trainers in the cycling world. And even some of your ultra running people, they've always said that if you were to intake anywhere between 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates per hour, then you could sustain, basically anything below your FTP. You basically sub threshold type workout. You could sustain that for however long you've trained your body to do so. So for something like this, like you've done 18 hours, you know that you can complete 18 hours. If you were putting it in 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates an hour, plus the right amount of fluid, just to make sure that you're maintaining your electrolyte balance and bringing in some sort of electrolytes, you should be able to complete, your objective. But today's science is shifted, and for maximum, and what they're saying now is that that number of 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates has exponentially grown to anywhere between 60 and 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. And for the average person, they're sitting there going, that's kind of crazy. But it's, maybe a banana has 40 grams of carbohydrates. That would mean you'd need to eat 2 bananas every hour, for 18 hours. I don't think anybody's really got the stomach for that. I can't imagine 15 tortillas with bananas and almond butter for 18 hours. Your stomach's not going to handle that very
Oh
well.
my
So
God, man, you are such a ninja. I got to tell you,
you
I only ate like 6 of them. And I was so upset on the way down because that just meant that I must have carried 5 pounds of extra weight on me that I didn't need.
you didn't need it, but you not only did you not need it, but your body just,
I couldn't do it.
our bodies are machines. I mean, they're only designed to process so much. I mean, in your type of a workout, you basically went into that ketonic or ketone type burning thing where you're trying to burn fat. You actually probably would have been better off dropping the tortilla and the carbohydrates and actually supplemented with something that had higher proteins in it, and went off of fat only, and using fat and protein to actually be, and you'd have to slow down a little bit. But if you used fat and protein only, you probably would have been much, much more successful. I'm also guessing you probably didn't train on all those carbohydrates. So there's no way your stomach could have been prepared for that. It couldn't do it. So I think in this situation, you kind of put yourself into a, I probably could have coached you through that before you even took that adventure on. I know that a nutritionist can as well, but you got to watch out for the nutritionist, because they are going to say, well, you need the balance. And, your body's not been in balance, in that type of a balance, in a long time. You've been what sounds to me like in a fat burning state for so long that you've kind of plateaued. And the only way for you to get through that is to work on that nutrition piece of it. And I don't think carbohydrates would have been the best bet for you. Protein would have been so much better, and fat would have been great for you in that type of a situation, for you to burn and for you to complete what you needed to complete.
Well,
where do you get that on a plant-based diet?
Well, let me be a little selfish right now and ask you, because I am totally in a plateau. I'm at 200 and about running around 208 to 212 pounds, depending on what day of the week you catch me on.
Yeah.
But I really want to break the 200. That's my goal for this year, is get under the 200. The reason I'm looking for less weight is because, from what I've learned on the trail, and I think I'm wrong, by the way, what I learned on the trail is that, weight equals miles. So the less on the backpack, the longer you can go. But I also find that in aging, there's also strength and, and muscle equals miles too. So to build muscle, you're going to gain some weight. And I struggle with that, even though I go get a DEXA scan every 3, 4, 5 months. I go probably 2, 3 times a year to get a DEXA scan now. And really working hard at shedding fat and building a little more muscle to give you the endurance that I'm looking for these adventures. What would you do? What would you say to somebody, like, through your perspective and what you've done for yourself? What would you say to somebody who's hitting a plateau, and how do you get 10 pounds of fat off of you, which has become real challenging for me?
So I feel like you're in the exact same situation I was in a year ago. I had hit a plateau. Physically, I was as fast as I was going to get. Cyclists, we measure everything in watts per kilogram. Just like in hiking, it's how much energy can you push for how much you weigh. Cycling is the same thing. How many watts can you push out for every pound of body mass that you have? I was able to get to a watts per kilo. My watts per kilo for my threshold was sitting right around 4.6. And for a guy who's 50 years old, that's exceptional. I mean, across the board, if I were to measure myself against everybody else in the world, I'm probably in the 99 percentile for somebody in their 50s. But I could never break that plateau. I could never get over 4.5, 4.6. And no matter how much I rode my bike, no matter how many intervals I did, I just couldn't do it. So when I hired my coach, I hired him about a year and a half ago. He's an exercise physiologist by trade. He's a coach on the side. And one of his biggest things was getting me back inside of the gym. And he said, look, one of the things that you have to protect as you start to gain age is the muscle mass, because it takes somebody in their 50s probably 3 to 4 times longer to put on muscle than somebody in their 20s. And it takes us a quarter of the time to lose it than somebody in their 20s. I mean, my son can go to the gym and look at the bench, and all of a sudden his chest is puffed out. If I don't go to the gym every single week, I'm losing muscle mass top to bottom right away. So he said, look, you're going to gain a pound, you're going to gain maybe 2 pounds, but we're still going to measure everything in watts per kilo. How many watts can you push out? How many kilos? What I ended up finding by going to the gym and working on that core strength and working on the muscles that had been so neglected, which we do neglect so many different muscles. I mean, you've been hiking, but I bet you haven't worked on your hips or your hip flexors or your abductors or all of those secondary muscles that we tend to neglect as we start to get older. We think quads and hamstrings and glutes and chest and biceps, but we don't think about all the other little muscles that come into play. Well, my coach put me on this regimen, which was I swear to God, I felt like I went back to the 1980s because it was like Jane Fonda workouts. I'm laying on a rubber mat inside of my garage doing leg lifts with no weight. And my buddies are coming over there going, really, this is what you're doing to get stronger? And, we're doing these these body weight movements and using a lot of rubber bands, that type of stuff to get some strength in some areas that have been so neglected. I ended up seeing about a 25-watt increase in my overall power. Now, that would be huge if my weight would have stayed the same. But I gained a couple of pounds of muscle that went along with it. But what ended up happening is my watts per kilo went from that 4.5, 4.6 range to 4.7, 4.8 range. Literally, I mean, most pro cyclists are sitting in that 5 to 5.5 watts per kilogram. So it took me very, very high up in an elite level for me by adding the weight training to my system. Yes, I gained weight, but I think the problem is you can't focus on the weight. You can't focus on that goal number. If you're so fixated on sub 200 pounds, I think you're missing the big picture, because the big picture isn't the sub 200 pounds. The big picture is the 24-hour hike. The big picture is overall performance. And the even bigger picture is how well do I recover from that performance? Do I wake up 3 days later still in agony and pain, or do I feel stronger? Can I play with my kids? Can I chase my kid around the street? Can I run? Can I lift? Can I get things out of my car, go to the grocery store? Can I still, like a man, carry 7 bags from Target at the same time? You bet your ass. And it all comes from that strength training. And yes, I gained a little weight, but weight's not the number. That's not the goal. And if that's what you're looking at when you hit the status where you're at now, I can see it when we were weighing 220 pounds, but we're at a different level. We're a different person than we ever were. So if you're focused on that, your focus is in the wrong place. Your focus needs to be on the goal, the real goal, not a number, not a weight.
Wow, man. Yeah, you can drop the mic right there. That was freaking amazing. Holy shit. I did not expect this, my friend. That is so beautifully said. Holy crap. Yeah, if I had hair, it'd be like totally like remember the old Bose
Yeah.
commercial? Was it Bose?
Yeah.
Dude, I am just
Yeah.
you are so right. I mean, I totally always, again, since I was a little boy, I've been fixated with that number, that weight, that weight. It's always been ingrained in me. Even when I read the DEXA scans, I don't even celebrate. If the DEXA scan shows a heavier weight than last time, because it also takes in your whole body weight, I'm just focused on that more than I am at the fact that I gained a pound of muscle over that period of time. And dude, that was so amazing. And I'm frustrated. I'm still wearing, I'm wearing size 34 pants right now, which I was wearing size 46 a year ago, and I'm still fixated over the weight when like I'm doing things that most guys my age can only dream about, most of the population.
Not, Jerry, like way more than most. And I think that's what you have to, if I were, I don't know, if I could give you any like just straight up guidance or any advice, just one athlete to the next, it would be stop measuring yourself against yourself. Stop weighing in, stop going. I mean, yeah, weigh in when you need to find that watts per kilogram, and when you need to make sure that you're taking in the right macros and you're making sure that you're taking in the right proteins. But if you're counting those macros, and if you're making sure that you hit your targets and you're putting in the work that you need to put in and you're burning the calories, it really should be about how you feel when you perform.
Oh.
It should be about that, and it shouldn't be about anything else. And I get the DEXA scan. I mean, I'd go do a DEXA scan, sure, maybe annually, maybe semi-annually.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would want to go 3 or 4 times. And first of all, they're expensive. It's not the cheapest thing. So, save a little money there. Maybe spend the money on, heart rate lactate testing, see where your heart, I mean, I can see you getting so much more from learning how to work in specific target zones. And maybe monitoring your heart rate while you're doing your walking, or while you're doing your hiking, and seeing, getting a real live understanding of when you're in your fat burning zone, when you're in your carbohydrate burn zone, when you're in that, that zone where you're not burning anything other than glucose, so knowing where those are at, so that you can go on a hike and you can say, okay, today I'm going to hike 4 hours, and I want to hike today, and I want to burn up glycose, I want to burn up all of the glycogen in my muscles. So I'm going to do it at this heart rate so that I can get all of that out of there, so that I can build back up again. Or I want to go out with the intent to burn fat, and I just want to go long and slow and take in the birds and do that type of thing. I think you could do so much better from a lactate test inside of a gym under a controlled atmosphere with a coach, to get those specific numbers so that you could train with a heart rate versus spending the money on a DEXA scan to tell you a number that doesn't mean anything. Because if you can do what you set out to do, who cares what the number is? Who cares what the scale tells you? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I said it to somebody the other day. I mean, I literally physically, I feel probably the same or better than I felt in my 30s. So I need to get to a place where I celebrate that and let go of the other stuff and just keep moving towards that. And I hear, that's what I hear you saying. Just improve on the things that are real. The things that are real are, what I put in my mouth and what I do at the gym, and everything else is just a lot of white noise,
Yeah.
Becomes a lot of noise. Yeah, it's intense, man. And there's so much of it because there's so many schools of thoughts and so many things, but you're coming at it from a science perspective, and yeah, you've certainly walked the walk, man. This couldn't have been any more timely for me. And I just wanted to ask you about, are you doing, for your type of sport, are you doing anything in zone 2?
Right now, that's all I'm doing.
Okay.
So I use a periodization training, which pretty much every athlete out there is going to do for endurance athletes. So everything for me at this point in time is zone 2, and I've been studying a lot on zone 2 and a lot of the zone 2 work that we do.
Can you tell people what zone 2 is?
Yeah, so zone 2, or better referred to as your endurance zone, is basically an area of basically a percentage of what you're capable of. So as a cyclist, we measure everything in watts, so how many watts can I produce? So if my body, for instance, my FTP sits somewhere around 300, in between 300 to 310 watts is my FTP. And what that means is that I can do 300 watts for 1 hour, and that will produce failure. My body will completely shut down after 1 hour at 300 watts. Now, anything that I do above or below that taxes on my energy system. So if I work below the 300 watts, I can go 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours. And the further below I work below that 300 watts, the longer I can go. The more I attack and go over the 300 watts, the more I start burning up matches, meaning I'm chewing up the glycogen that's in my muscles, and I'm depleting my body of all the glycogen. And unfortunately, no matter how hard we try, we cannot replace what our body produces as we do endurance activities. So when I say zone 2 training, zone 2 is approximately, it's in between 65 to 75% of my functional threshold power, or my FTP. So if it's 300, if I'm 300 watts, then I want to be somewhere in that 200 to 230 watt range, and that's my endurance zone. So if I train my endurance zone, I'm keeping the glycogen. I'm not depleting my body of glycogen. I'm actually, instead of burning carbohydrates, I'm actually burning fat as a fuel source. I can actually replace what I'm burning as I'm burning it. So if I start to burn up too much of it, or if I get crazy and I decide I want to do a 6-hour ride, I just have to take in enough carbohydrates to replace that fat that it's burning and that energy that it's burning up, and I can continue to make it those 6 hours. So the endurance training for an athlete is so important, because what it does is it teaches your body how to appropriately burn fuel. And a lot of people, I go to the gym and I go to spin class. A lot of those types of activities are super high intense activities. They're glycogen depleting activities that burn up all of that glycogen. And in order for you to burn fat, you actually have to slow down. And it's such a weird mentality, and people don't get that. They want to go out and they just want to go as hard as they can. And they're like, oh, I worked out for an hour and I burned 1,000 calories. That's awesome, because I just worked out for 2 hours at half the rate, burned exact same amount of calories, but most of mine was fat and all of yours was glycogen. And what happens when your body gets depleted of glycogen? Well, you go home, you sit on the couch, you grab a Twinkie or a cookie or, whatever comes in front of your face, and you restore that glycogen as fast as you can, because you're starving, right? It burns everything up. But when you're fat depleted, it's different. You come in, you take a protein shake in, and automatically you feel great. You don't feel like you killed yourself. You can also repeat yourself. So now when I burn glycogen, if I go out and I do a really hard, intense effort, well, I can't do that 2 days in a row because I'm 50. I don't have that, you don't have that power multiple days in a row. But what you do have is plenty of fat stores. I mean, our body is comprised of probably anywhere, most of us at our age, we're sitting around, 15 to 25% of body fat available to us. That's free fuel, guys. That's gasoline. And not only is it gasoline, it's diesel. It runs and it burns slow and it burns hot, So you look at training and you look at your approach of your fuel, and you think about your fuel. If you have a choice, you can burn fat and you can burn glycogen. You can burn that nitrous, but nitrous is only good for so long, and nitrous hurts you because the next day you've depleted all of that. There is none of that left. So I spend an absorbent amount of time in zone 2. At this time of year, all of my training, and I mean, it's a full 4-week periodization for me. So I do 4 weeks of nothing but zone 2. After the first 4 weeks, then the next 4-week block for me, and I build on that. I build that endurance. So the first week is, let's call it 10 hours. The second week is 12 hours. The third week is 14 hours. And then the fourth week is a recovery week. So I drop it back down to like 8 hours. And that's my body, giving my body time to adapt to all of that training that I did in zone 2. Then I go into the next block of build phase, or a base phase, which is the same, more of the same, only I will start to introduce tempo work. And tempo is a zone just above endurance zone. So now I'm teaching my body to burn a little bit of glycogen, but still also burn that fat at the same time. And I'm convincing my body to utilize both the fuels and the fuel sources, so that when I get into a race that's 4 hours long, I can burn fat while I'm racing, and while the efforts aren't super hard. But then if they get really, really hard, I can convert and turn on the nitrous and burn up some glycogen, and then go right back to that fat burning process again. So it's this delicate balance. So then in that, you get into that 5th week of training, or that block 2, and you start introducing just a little bit of extra effort, and we call it tempo work. And tempo is about 75% of your max, and that could be max heart rate, that could be 70 or threshold, of threshold, not max, of your threshold. And that could be 70% of your heart rate threshold. That could be 70% of your power threshold. But then you start to incorporate some of that before you start to do, and then eventually you get into like the very specific training where you're focused on, I need to be able to climb a hill at 320 watts, to get to the top. So you do short power intervals to build those matches, so that you have a big box of matches to burn out. So tons of zone 2 training though. That's, I can't stress that enough, especially for older athletes.
That's what I've been doing the most of lately. That's kind of where I live, actually. I actually did a 10K. I thought it was a 10K that I did with 2 people that I was with Kimberly and Hilda. While Kimberly is pushing a stroller, I'm running at zone 2 next to her while she's pushing a stroller. And people have a hard time believing that you can run that slow. that you can literally run so slow to be and I was going more for zone one while I was with them
Hmm.
because I wanted to talk to them and just sit there, but I could literally run. I have 80-year-old women that walk by me in my neighborhood, blow past me because I'm running slower than they're power walking.
Yeah.
And but I'm measuring my zones on my watch, which are, as you know, not the most accurate resources, but at least it
So are
gives me
you using an Apple Watch
a
for that?
Garmin.
Oh, Garmin. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a little
Are you
better.
using it? Are you using a chest strap as well?
No, I have to, right? That's my next level. I have to get one, right?
So, and I would recommend something a little different. I would encourage you to go on to, not to plug any specific brands, but I'm going to plug a brand here. That's going to be Wahoo. And I would go on and get what we call a Wahoo Fit, and it's just a heart rate band, and you turn it
Yeah.
on and you turn it off. And you actually wear it on your forearm. It's an
Oh,
optical sensor. I really, really like it as an optical sensor. It performs much, much better than the chest strap. The chest strap is more of an EKG, and yes, it picks up the heartbeat. But with an optical sensor, it uses infrared and all the optics to measure heart rate. I find it's a lot more accurate. It's also a lot more comfortable. I hate the chest strap. It's constricting. It
so do
feels
I.
weird.
Hate them.
I hate it. So go look at Wahoo Fit, and it's just an armband. You can order it on Amazon, have it here in 2 days, and it's like $79, and it will automatically connect to your Garmin. I'm very familiar with Garmin product. I'm a Garmin guy myself. You have to be. It'll automatically connect to your Garmin, but it's going to give you a much better accurate reading. And then when you're doing your walks, you'll be able to maintain that zone two much more effectively, because your Garmin does have an optical sensor, but it's reading the optics on your wrist, and there's not enough meat there for it to actually pick up the heart rate well enough. So if you move it up to your forearm, and the pod sits right on top of the muscle of your forearm,
Oh, that's
and it
awesome.
it it picks up. It's awesome. It's rechargeable. There's no batteries. You just recharge it. 30-hour battery, so it's going to get you through your longest hike. So yeah, I would aim for that to get more accurate.
I just wanted to ask you also, you know, you're a busy guy. I'm gonna say you're way busier at this stage in your life. You're still way busier than I am. I was like you at your age,
Hmm.
at the level of busy that you're at.
Hmm.
Knowing you as well as I do, and having lived in my skin for as long as I have, what, where do you carve out the time to put in the hours that you're putting in? Because I know you have young kids and you have a lot going on. Both of you, yeah, both of you are really impressive. So that's something I'm curious about.
So, I mean, there's one TV in our house, really, and we don't spend a lot of time in front of it. Maybe an hour before bed, and that's just winding down. We get up in the morning, we immediately get to work. I try. I'm not an early riser. I don't get up at 5 a.m. I believe that one of the key elements for success at our age is good recovery. I cannot stress recovery enough. It's a balance of recovery and endurance that really brings us to the elite level. So recovery is crucial. So in our house, we're in bed. Christmas has been great. I haven't been super busy, Jerry. I've been in bed at 8:30 almost every night for like a week straight, and I'm
Guilty,
sleeping.
guilty as charged. Guilty as
Yeah,
charged.
8:30, and then I'm sleeping until 7 in the morning, maybe 6:30 in the morning. Get up, we get to work, we get to moving, we get our jobs done. As an inspector, if I'm working, I'm doing 2 inspections a day. I'm coming home. I have an early day. I mean, my day starts early enough that I get to the inspection. By the time I'm done wrapping up with work, I could get the physical portion of work wrapped up by 4, and that allots me, I'm only in the gym twice a week, so that doesn't take up a huge amount of time. We're only talking 2 hours there, and then we got 12 hours on the bike. So I'm going to say that I spend on average an hour and a half to 2 hours daily of exercise Monday through Friday. So that's between the gym work in my garage, and I set it up in my garage. I mean, I've got you know, a full setup of dumbbells and a bench and kettlebells and stuff like that, the essentials that I need. Now, I don't have a full squat rack and all that. You don't need it. You can do everything you need to do with dumbbells. I'm living proof of that. So I'm doing all of that inside of the garage, and then my trainer's in the back. So if it's raining, I just jump on the trainer. If it's late, I get on the trainer. If the weather sucks like it has been, I'm on the trainer. And then on Saturday, I carve out. Melissa's very generous with me. Saturdays is my day, and I get to do anywhere between a 3 to 5 hour ride. And whether that's a race somewhere, sometimes it's a race, sometimes it's just roll out at 8 o'clock in the morning and go ride my bike for 5 hours with some friends. And then on Sundays, I usually carve out time for her to do the same thing too. So we'll get up, we'll go to church, we'll do our church thing. And then she's getting more into running, and I'm coaching her through that process. She used to be an ultra runner. She used to love, you know, whatever, I don't even know, marathons. She would do marathons. Yeah, she loved that stuff. So I've been helping her get back into that again. So we'll carve out some time for her on Sundays for her to do her long day, and we just kind of take turns and we balance it back and forth. It's getting easier now because my youngest is 9 years old. So I, people out there may turn me into child services, but it's like, hey, I'm going to go for a run for 30 minutes. Here's the phone, call me if you need me, and we'll go for a walk or whatever. Or she'll, if we go out for something, she'll follow us on her bike. She loves to ride her bike too. So my wife can run and she can ride her bike alongside. So there's time in the day. You just have to manage it. If you spend all of your time in front of a TV, or, a lot of people spend, 2 hours cooking dinner. We don't. We're fast cooks. We know exactly what we're going to eat because we eat the same thing all the time, so we can whip dinner up in 20 minutes and we can eat and be off to violin lessons and tennis lessons and you name it. You just time management. But TV is a waste. it's a suck, Facebook is a suck. Social media is a suck. Any of those things. Now I get it. You got to do it for work, and I do. You just you manage. I don't know. I Facebook on the toilet, I guess. I don't know. You manage the time. You pick a time when that's appropriate, but when it's workout time, it's workout time, and you block it. And if you block it, you use it. You don't give it up.
I love that about you guys. And I've had this conversation with your beautiful wife before, where I said, how much of the military helped you guys figure out time blocking and time management and discipline, even within your own businesses? Because I find that you run your business very efficiently. How much of that would you say came from the military, or is it just a combination of life after the military?
I don't know. I think what the one thing that military instills in you is diligence, due diligence, and doing what you need to do and getting it done. It's funny because it's like I have this complaint in today's society, even structured society. Like, for instance, I go to church on Sunday morning and church service starts at 9 a.m. But at 9 a.m., we go to a church that has a big screen, and then they have a countdown, right? They do the countdown before the service. Well, the countdown doesn't even start until 3 minutes after they're supposed to start the service. I'm like, what is wrong with society? I was always taught that if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And I am 15 minutes early to everything. Don't invite me to your house for a 6 o'clock dinner and expect me to show up at 6:30. It's not going to happen. I will be there at 5:30 because dinner's at 6, which means I need 30 minutes to acclimate, right? So, and we've trained our children to do this. I mean, the school bell rings and the kids are still getting out of cars. What's wrong with our society in that aspect? So, yeah, the military teaches you about time management, but I don't know. I think I don't know if that was my grandpa, my dad, or whatever. It was just, if you have a time to do something, then that's when that time should be. You don't mess around with time, because that never ever you can't get it back. You can never get time back. So why would you give up 5 minutes anywhere? Even to church. I don't want to give you my extra 5 minutes there. Get to the point. Let's do what we came here to do. Let's be successful by being diligent with our time. So yeah, we're 15 minutes early to everything.
Well, I'm going to wrap up today because, out of respect for your time, I can sit here another hour with you, just so you know. I really do mean that.
Yeah, I could come back to it.
I was that was kind of going to be not to put you on the spot in front of anybody, and I can always edit this out, but Man, I can talk to you once a week, bro. I think you
Yeah.
have so much content. And if Idisham, my director of operations, wait till he gets done with episode post-production and all that. And
Hmm.
and we can even help you level up a couple little things on your side. You and I can do some really cool stuff to help some people, man. It would be
Yeah.
you have a lot of content, dude. You're a well. And I didn't know, I knew there was something there, but I didn't know that it was this vast and this deep. It's to say that it's impressive is the understatement of the year. I'd just love to just be around you a little more, man. It's so
I'm
impressive and overwhelming.
anytime, anytime. I can
Overwhelming.
talk this stuff all day long.
Oh,
So,
how fun,
all day
dude.
long.
How fun. I
So,
mean, you talk to me about gadgets. You talk to me, you covered the gamut, bro. That would just be a gift.
I mean, if I could tell anybody and everybody something and give people something, it's we stopped leaning on our elders. And well, guess what? We're the elders now. We're the
Weird,
50 year
yeah,
olds.
yeah.
You know, we stopped asking them questions and we started asking Google and we started asking, Siri and everybody else. But we're not asking the people who've actually lived it and done it. And we need to go back to that. And as I think this year, I've learned so much about myself, but more importantly, I've learned what I have to offer and give to everybody else. I have made so many mistakes in my life. And I can tell you, I could tell, I try and tell my kids all the time, you don't have to do that. There's no reason for that. But, they don't listen as well. We didn't listen to our parents either. But, you know, there's a wealth of knowledge that we get from being just old, from being older, and we have to give it back. And that's kind of where I'm at. And that's I've signed up to be a youth pastor. I've done everything I can to try and get back to these young kids. And
Yeah.
we've got to get the word out. We got to help them. So I love talking this stuff. I've coached a couple of young kids and athletes for free just to help them get started. And I think it's a joy for me.
Well, you've made
So
you unexpectedly so. You've probably made this the most fun podcast I've sat and I'll tell you, I've had some conversation with some people that have been very deep and meaningful. This has been like the most fun
yeah.
for me because I'm in this space now and I'm just like a sponge trying to absorb.
Yeah.
And you're light years ahead of me. And oh man, if we can share this with anybody, it'd just be amazing. I didn't realize that, the water that I'm drinking today, it's for my run tomorrow. I thought that you hydrated the day of the, I thought you hydrated the day of the race, but
Mm-mm.
you start 2 days
Yeah.
before.
2
So
days
there's,
before you fuel even further before.
yeah,
So
you see, and I still don't get that. So there's so much to learn, and which kind of tells me that tomorrow's run should be a lot less than what I was thinking in my head, because in my head I keep moving the goalpost out, and I kind of go from how I feel. If I start feeling good, I'm like, hey, maybe today
mm,
I'll run 20 miles. Well, I've never ran 20 miles in my life. Why would I do today? Why would I
yeah.
do it today unprepared? So yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, we got to stay, you got to stay, you definitely should chart everything. Everything should be written down, and you got to stick to the program. I mean, you can't, and again, you have to incorporate the right amount of recovery and the right amount of endurance. And I think as we get older, that's we give up recovery more than anything, because we're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm getting old and I'm not getting any younger, so let me just go as hard as I can. But you can't neglect that recovery. So keep the recovery going. So
Dude, this was amazing. I can't wait to do it again. I'll reach out to you offline and talk to you a little more,
yep.
but I can't thank you enough, man. This has been super special, bro.
Thank you. Me as well.
Have an amazing day.
You too. Take
I
care.
think I think I know what you're up to.
Yeah, I got to get on the trainer.
There you go. See you. Bye. Peace out.
All right. Take care.
Bye.